Big Conversations, Little Bar, with your hosts Randy Florence and Patrick Evans, featuring candid conversations with the Coachella Valley's most interesting and influential people. Pull up a bar stool and enjoy Big Conversations, Little Bar.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Big Conversations, Little Bar. My name is Patrick Evans, and we are your hosts, me and Randy Florence, my co-host and good friend, and we are coming to you live. Well, taped live.
But we're still good friends. That's the important thing.
That's the important thing. We're here at Little Bar, Skip Page's Little Bar, at the center of the Coachella Valley universe in Palm Desert. Randy, nice to have you here, as always.
I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm really excited about this episode.
Oh, this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just kicked our guest. Ow! And also thanks to John McMullen, our producer and engineer. We appreciate you all listening. Our guest today is a friend of mine. I've known Sue for a number of years. Sue Cameron, reporter for The Hollywood Reporter and a myriad of other things in Hollywood and L.A. for many, many years. Now here in the Coachella Valley. I had you on Eye in the Desert to talk about one of your books.
Yes, Hollywood Secrets and Scandals.
Hollywood Secrets and Scandals, and every chapter is just named after a celebrity.
It's so cool.
Thumb through, pick a celebrity, and there were secrets and or scandals, and Sue knew them all. So, Sue, I'm excited about this. I know this is one of those podcasts we can do over and over and over again.
Fine, I'll just get a bed here, and we can...
a lot of people have fallen asleep here, so that would work out.
Yes.
We were just chatting about the beginning of your career, and Randy and I both said we should record this. So talk about this, because you had just gotten out of USC.
Yes.
And you were shopping around for a full-time job.
Yes.
And so take it from there. You're at KFMB Radio.
It gets a little bit worse. My parents offered me a trip to Europe. I was standing by Tommy Trojan. They said, "Congratulations, this is your graduation gift." And I went, "Oh, and I don't want that. I need to go to work right away. That's what I want to do."
Wow. And your dad was a physician, correct?
Yes. What a fool. But nevertheless, I made a list of radio stations, television stations, and movie studios. And I started with radio because that was the first on the list. And I saw KFWB Radio, which was the big rock and roll station at that time. And I loved it. And I listened to it every day. And I knew of all of the DJs, B. Mitchell Reed, Gene Weed, Bill Balance. And Jimmy, who was the host of Shindig, Jimmy O'Neill. It was ridiculous. Wink Martindale. Anyway, I walked in there.
Those are some names.
Yes, that was who I met on my first day. That and Raquel Welch. That's a whole other story. But I showed up. I showed up wearing. I had on a knee socks, and a plaid skirt. I look kind of like a mini Catholic schoolgirl, and. I told them that I wanted to write or do something for them. They offered me one job in traffic. I didn't know what it was, but until I saw what it was, then I said no. And he said, "Well, wait a second. We may have something for you. I've been thinking about starting a newspaper." And he said, "Can you put together an 8-page newspaper once a week, every week? You have to interview the people, you have to shoot the pictures, you have to edit it, you have to lay it out." I said, "Please don't ask me to distribute it."
And it was specifically about rock and roll, wasn't it?
Only rock and roll. And what was so cool was, at that time, the artists had to show up at the radio station in order to... There were these little mob guys at every station, and you had to bounce straight before the mob guy, whose name I'm leaving out. And miraculously, the record would go on the air. To be able to put a record on the air, I remember when it was the Toys Lovers Concerto. I just remember that for one reason. The concept of not knowing a creative entity, and then there's a public thing that has a microphone, whether it's a television set, all in 1 second. You change people's lives. Gene Weed put that thing on the turntable, put a needle on it, and the record was number one. The effect of that was exhilarating. Another little-known fact, in my senior year, I danced at Hollywood A Go-Go on Channel 9. I've never said this before. The only reason I'm bringing it up, I was good, too.
I bet.
The only reason I'm bringing it up is that I was there the day Sonny and Cher came on for the first time. This is how I maintained friendship with these people, because Cher was 15 and terrified. There they were in their fur vests and all that stuff, and no one was talking to them. They looked like idiots. People were mistreating them. And I could see that this girl was just terrified and crushed. And I walked over to her and started complimenting her belt, and was in some Indian belt, and she was talking about Indian stitching and all that. And I got her calm, and she never forgot it. And that record, that was Baby Don't Go, and it went right up the charts. And I loved them, Sonny and Cher, and they adored me. So my career usually paralleled the stars that I was meeting at the time. When Sonny and Cher went to television, I was the television editor of The Hollywood Reporter. I can trace my career arc with certain stars where you meet them very young and you never let go of them, and they don't let go of you, because I don't ask anybody for favors. They know if I call, it's okay.
And so the doors were always open because you had a relationship.
Ridiculous.
Well, we'll talk. So Sonny and Cher, two of those stars.
Yes.
Name a couple of the other stars that kind of mirrored your arc along the way.
Sadly, a lot of them are dead, like Jim Morrison. I guess Jim, I will say that he's the sexiest man I've ever seen.
Really?
I was at the Whiskey that night, the first time he was there, in the black leather pants, and he never turned around to face the audience, and I had a first row seat, so guess what I stared at?
His butt all night.
For 90 minutes in black leather. And I loved it. But I didn't take drugs, I didn't do anything, so I didn't really understand much about it. The next time I saw Jim Morrison, it was in a recording studio. I was going with Jackie DeShannon because she was going to record something. I can't remember what. And the whole Wrecking Crew was there, Hal Blaine on drums, Glenn Campbell on guitar.
Oh, my gosh.
Everybody. And we couldn't record because Jim Morrison took too much LSD, and he went across the street to the Catholic Church, and he stole statues, and he threw them through the glass.
Of the church?
No, no,
the studio.
He only stripped the church. He threw them through the glass at the recording studio. The last time I saw Jim, I was still with Jackie. It was 3 a.m, and it was Thanksgiving, and her mother was massaging a turkey or something and was out of butter. So we were sent to the market. It's called the Sunfax Market. It was at Sunset in Fairfax. So every weirdo from the Strip would go there. It was open 24 hours. We walked in and saw Jim standing in the cereal aisle, just looking at the colors on the cereal boxes. I mean, he was completely zoned out. Those stories were tragic. Cass Elliott, for instance, yes, we met in the rock and roll time. We became very, very close. I had dinner with her the night before she went to London. I adored her. She was so bright, so funny, just extraordinary. And she said to me, I don't like the people who are staying in my... First of all, she said, will you come to London with me? She says, Debbie Reynolds is there, we'll have a ball. I said, I need a little more notice. I have to do columns ahead. I can't go. Anyway, we had dinner at Mr. Chow and went back. And I remember we were cruising along. She had a purple Cadillac with white tuck and roll and a white convertible. It was a white convertible. Big white sidewall tires. We are cruising along Mulholland Drive and Monday, and she's singing. She was at the height of happiness, and who knew that 5 days later, when we went back home that night, she said, I don't trust who's in my house. I want to give you all the things that are important to me. And she did.
She gave you all of her, that's right, she gave you all of the important possessions for you to safeguard.
Correct.
Because she sort of had a premonition that something...
She thought her house was going to be robbed.
Yeah.
And there I am, And I waited until her daughter Owen was 18. I saved everything for Owen and gave it all back to her. And now Owen and I are very friendly.
And there's a very fishy story surrounding her death.
Oh, yes. It's a hammy story.
It is yes. That was totally a cover.
Yes.
Like it's a BS story.
Total lie. Yes, that I did. Cass, I didn't hear on the news that she had died, and I was at lunch and I went to my office at the Hollywood Reporter, and some kid from the center section said, "You're friends with Cass Elliott? Is it 1T or 2?" And I said 1. Why? He said, "Oh, she died," and I almost just passed out on the floor, and I went, "Stop! Nobody write that obit. Just stop right now." And I called her apartment in London, and Alan Carr, her manager, picked up the phone and said to me, "I'm crying, he's crying." He says, he was crazy. He says, do me a favor. I'm sitting in her bedroom right now, and there's a half-eaten ham sandwich on the nightstand. You tell everybody that she died choking on a ham sandwich. Do you hear me? Put that out immediately. And I went, "I do, and I will." And so I put it out. The story is still all around, although I keep telling the truth.
You didn't perpetuate the myth. You created it.
I created it. Well, Alan is the one who said there's a ham sandwich.
But you wrote it.
Yes.
So the story that I believe about how Cass Elliott died, you created that.
Yes.
And how did she really die?
She was very overweight. She had heart issues. She also was unkind to her body by putting certain things in it that shouldn't be there, and did that the night before. And it was just a confluence of horrors. And that was it. And I went to bed for a month. I couldn't believe that something like that. It just really threw me. It was horrible.
Yeah, it is, though. It's really kind of telling, because Alan told you to write this. You wrote it. And there's an old saying that, a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth gets its boots on.
Yes.
And you know the truth.
Yes.
And you've been telling the truth ever since.
I know. It's only like, hello.
But it doesn't get any traction because the lie is so much better, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, the lie was great. But unfortunately, they were fat jokes, so that wasn't...
Right. Not so great.
No, that wasn't good. Owen finally... Owen, that's Cass's daughter. She finally said to me, "Tell me exactly about the ham sandwich." And so I did. And I said, "She didn't die from ham sandwiches. Relax." But there's just, it's story after story.
Well, at that
I seem to be there all the time.
Yeah, at that time in entertainment, this was happening more often than we would have liked it to have happened with entertainers. You got close to a lot of people that were going through that at the same. I mean, Jim Morrison, Cass Elliott. I was reading your blog later, and you talked about the group from Glee. And some of the stuff that group went through. I mean, as great as the entertainment field was for you, you dealt with a lot of pain and some very difficult stories, too.
I have gone through, I think, some of the most horrendous tragedies in the world.
Yeah.
It started with Bobby Darin, and then went to Cass Elliott.
Tell us about the Bobby Darin.
Talk a little bit about Bobby Darin, because he died at 37.
Yes.
Incredibly young. Always had health issues.
Yes. He had rheumatic fever as a child, and he was told he wasn't going to live past something or other. It was a date in his 30s. Also, he was told that his aunt was his mother, but his sister really was his mother.
Right.
So that was hard for him to take.
He found that out before he passed.
Yes. Yeah. He didn't die from that, but no. So it was a very confusing thing. He was in love with Connie Francis, and Connie Francis's parents wouldn't allow it. So Bobby, who knew he had a time clock on him, was pushier and faster than anybody in the business. There was Bobby and there was Sammy Davis. Both of them were two of the fastest running, most talented men. They each sing, dance, act, do comedy, and play every instrument and impressions. And there is nobody as talented as those two, and I've seen everybody live. I adored Bobby because we both love music. And we got along so well. I would go over to his house and we'd play music and he'd play horn lines and all the stuff. And he'd talk about Sandra Dee, who he really, really loved and wanted to get back together with. He flew me up to Las Vegas sometimes and he was playing, and after the show I'd look at him and I go, oh my God, you superimpose the Everybody's Everything horn line on top of For Once in My Life, because you're the only person in the world who would know that. So I had a ball with him. Bobby wanted to die. He knew the time was running short. His heart was failing. He knew that if he had made a dentist appointment, he knew that if he didn't take his antibiotics, he would get sick and possibly die. He deliberately did not take the antibiotics for the dentist appointment.
Wow.
And he died.
Wow. Again, testament to the guests that we have had on this podcast. My friend Fred Bronson was the publicist on the Bobby Darin show.
Uh-huh.
And Fred spoke with us about working on that show and how he had idolized Bobby Darin growing up. And he said that when he first started working on the show, he didn't realize why Bobby didn't want to do a lot of publicity. Like, you have this show. But he knew time was short. And Fred said he realized after the fact that Bobby Darin really knew that he wasn't going to be around for a long period of time. So he did the show, but he didn't do any additional outside publicity.
No. The last show he taped, I was there. And he did some solos and he did some duets. And after it was over, they would stop the tape and he would almost crawl to the others, behind the curtain where there were big oxygen machines, and he would have to use all that stuff to get back on stage and tape another segment, and then he could go back to the oxygen machines. The thing that kills me is he and Sandra Dee really did belong together. And they were looking at a house on Stone Canyon Drive. They were really going back together.
Oh.
After he died and she lost him, she just wanted to die. And she made sure she did.
Wow. That's incredible.
Cheery, isn't it? No, but it's terrible, the people I've lost. Debbie Reynolds, Carrie Fisher, Valerie Harper, Mary Tyler Moore. I was at the taping of the Betty White's Hot in Cleveland when Valerie, that was what she shot after the cancer announcement, and I was there with her every day to make sure that everything was okay. And so I was locked on a set with all of those women who I'd known all those years. And
when did you first meet Betty White?
Oh, God. Probably the late 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah, she still had her hairspray, the same hairspray. Betty was one of the sweetest people in the world. That's not phony. That's just Betty.
Well, I think someone like a Betty White, you can't be phony and have that persona and that longevity.
No.
I mean, authenticity breeds the kind of respect that she had.
But she had a temper.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Cloris Leachman was really acting up on the set, and Betty didn't like it. Betty was all about professional, and Mary was so sick, and Valerie was good but heading to disaster. And Cloris Leachman didn't show up one morning. No one knew who she was. She was hitchhiking. She had on she was nude and had a bathrobe over her.
Cloris Leachman.
And was trying to hitchhike on Pacific Coast Highway to get to the set. Finally, someone picked her up, and she showed up in this bathrobe.
Naked in a bathrobe.
Yeah, with her hair all the way out to here. And that's when Betty White took her assistant and took her behind a flat and said, "Take care of this." And so who has to take care of it? Valerie Harper. Wow. Betty says Betty's assistant says to me, "You must tell Valerie to handle this situation." This is Valerie, who's just announced that she
had brain cancer.
Right. So I tell Valerie, and Valerie looked at me and goes, "Was it ever thus?" She did it the whole time on Mary Tyler Moore. She's dying from brain cancer, and she still has the job of keeping Cloris in line.
Oh, my God. And you knew Valerie from back in the Mary Tyler Moore days.
Yes, we met when she shot the pilot on Mary Tyler Moore. And
So in hindsight, what is it that made people feel so comfortable with you to be open and honest and trusting?
because I was not in awe of them, and I never asked them for anything. And I complimented them, and they knew if they gave me an interview, they would read back what they said to me.
They could trust you.
They trusted me. They still do. I mean, I just don't ask people for favors, and my calls are returned. Like when ABC was developing an illegal miniseries on Cher, I called her up, and I said, they're going to call you. They're going to say, we're going to shoot this without you, but if you're executive producer, you'll have total control. And I tipped her off to that.
And your relationship with Cher goes back to
oh my God,
the very beginning you mentioned.
15 years old.
She was 15. With the first time she and Sonny opened at, it was Ciro's, and then it was then called It's Boss, some horrible. Now it's the Comedy Club. They had just had 2 hits, and it was the first club they ever played as Sonny and Cher. Cher gets very, very, very frightened, and she throws up.
Stage fright.
Yeah, she throws up before every show. And Sonny just gets sick of it, or got sick of it. And so she was not coming down, and they had a time when they were supposed to go on, and he's banging on the bathroom door, and she's not coming out, and he's furious. And he leaves. He's just walking off, and I go, knock, 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 knock. I go, it really is going to be fine. They already love you. You're going to sing Walking the Dog. They love that. You're going to sing Baby Don't Go. It's easy. Come on, let's go. And she opened the door after throwing up, and I hope she rinsed out her mouth. And then and then I took her down to the stage. I mean, that's she gave me a coat from what's his face? Give me the husband with the long blonde hair.
Oh, Allman?
Allman.
Greg Allman.
Oh, Greg Allman.
Yeah.
The Allman Brothers.
Yeah, he gave her a fur coat that looked like it was done by Trapper John, but it was very cute.
But it's probably from Dicker and Dicker in Beverly Hills.
Yes, of course. You know they've gone under, serious?
I know.
It's a moment of silence for Dicker and Dicker.
I know. I grew up with, watching The Price is Right. And they always say, first provided by Dicker and Dicker of Beverly Hills.
I know.
Talk about Sonny. How well did you know Sonny?
Extremely well. He was the brains. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew why they grew their hair long. He knew why they put on the vest.
Well, she was far more talented.
No.
Breaking news.
It pains me to say that about a fellow Italian. It pains me to say that about a fellow. But he understood that.
He was a truck driver from Gardena, and he got a job as a record promotion man. I knew him because, of course, of dancing on Hollywood A Go-Go. But his day job was promotion man. So when I was at KFWB, I would see Sonny there.
Pitching.
Carrying other people's records. And he kept that job until they could make enough money to move out. They were in ratty apartments. But this was a guy who was really smart. He knew his product. He knew how he would sell. He knew how she would sell. He was incredibly smart. Where he made his mistake was when she became so popular, much more popular than he tried to control her, and he tried to clamp down. He was doomed.
She got pretty strong at that point, didn't she?
Yes,
yeah.
It was when they had the CBS TV show. Mm-hmm. And Carol Burnett taped on one stage and Sonny and Cher taped on the other, and there was a public restroom between the two, so I would go back and forth watching both shows tape through the ladies' room. And I remember Cher, once again, refusing to come out of her dressing room, refusing to talk to Sonny. She was furious, and she dumped him. And that's what happened. But he was very smart in booking and how to produce talent. And he was really nice. Really, really nice.
Well, I think, it's a little bit of a testament to Sonny that he was able to reinvent himself, come out, become mayor of Palm Springs, and go on to Congress.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, I was, beside his mother, I was probably the most stunned person in the world. I mean, it was shocking, and I was devastated when he died. Devastated.
I got to meet Sonny. He was on the stump going around the country, and I was working in Virginia, and he was doing a speech, and I got to introduce Sonny.
Oh, nice.
So it was, and I'd grown up watching the Sonny and Cher show, so it was kind of a big deal, and I never imagined I would end up living in Palm Springs. Mm-hmm. And this was long before I moved. And but there was a charm about Sonny. He was very, very disarming.
He was adorable.
He was just very easy to talk to.
Oh,
we were not allowed to talk during the show. My mom would not allow us to talk. And the one thing she talked about over and over was when Sonny would reach over and move the hair out of Cher's eyes, my mom would just die. Every
that's
episode.
Really sexy. It is.
She loved it.
Especially because he had to reach up.
She's about 3 feet taller than he was, yeah. She got on a ladder.
With all due respect to Sonny.
No, it was also good for the show because it made the people believe that they were close. I'm sorry, but
all right, so you're going back and forth between Sonny and Cher and the Carol Burnett show.
yes.
So talk
Through the restroom.
Yes.
I had a seat. I had my own seat at either show if I wanted to sit.
Talk about your relationship and now that is another show that is so iconic from my youth, and you go back and watch those sketches. No one was funnier than Tim Conway.
Oh my God.
Harvey Korman.
And it was clear they were just working hard to make each other laugh during these sketches. Like, who can break up the other guy?
The Carol Burnett show. Carol Burnett was my idol. Is my idol. I just adored her because she's so talented. She can do dramatic acting, all this. I mean, it remains today how extraordinarily talented she is. Because I grew up in the theater, I had a biological father who owned theaters in Los Angeles, and so I grew up, my parents were divorced, and the doctor paid for everything, but the artistic lawyer who was Mickey Cohen's lawyer, because he worked for Jerry Giesler.
Wait, what?
I'm sorry. I'm going a little fast. I'm just kind
Mickey
of dropping
Cohen?
bombs. I don't mean to
That
drop.
was kind of I've known you for a long time. I didn't know that.
Okay, let's take it back to... Anyway, I was in the theater. We'll get to Uncle Mickey in a minute.
We'll circle back.
We'll get to Uncle Mickey.
Uncle Mickey.
That's what I called him. Where was I? I got so sidetracked.
We were talking about Carol.
Uncle Mickey.
You were exposed to the theater stuff through your biological
and that's
dad.
why I loved Carol Burnett, because it was a theatrical show where they would rehearse all week, and then they would only shoot it twice on Friday. They did the rehearsal show and then the air show, and they'd take the best from both of them. And I was there every single Friday from 3 in the afternoon till 10 at night, watching them shoot those shows. Not only did I have lots of friends on it, but I was watching Hollywood history and the best talent that you could see at that time. Just extraordinary, extraordinary people. That was really where I hung out. I didn't want to not visit Sonny and Cher because they would wonder where I was. So I certainly spent time there, but every Friday I was at
Carol Burnett.
Carol's, just sitting there. I had a special seat. I wasn't in the audience. They were so sweet to me. So sweet. She still is.
In hindsight, you've had a front row seat to some of the most amazing stuff in the history of television. Did you, when this was all happening, did you have an appreciation for it?
Absolutely. Because of my parents. My mother was a singer. The father's the Beverly Hills OBGYN guy. And the bio dad is Mickey Cohen's lawyer and a theater owner. I had a front row seat for everything, whether it was my father taking me to see Ingemar Johansson and Muhammad Ali live, to the Hollywood Stars game with Milton Berle, who was one of his clients. I was always there, and that was the only thing that I knew. I'm always part of the gang. Wow. But I was, because I was invited. There were people like, I hate that movie, Almost Famous, where it's a kid charging so he can say that he hung out with the Rolling Stones or whoever it is. That is not who I am. I was invited all the way. I chased after nothing. I found myself with those people and in those events constantly, and I was extremely aware of the history of it.
All right, one of the things, we're going to get back to the Mickey Cohen thing in just a minute.
Yeah.
But one of the things I like to do with Sue, I'm going to give you a name, you're going to give me a story.
I pray I know them.
I doubt I'll throw a name that you don't know out. But I'm going to focus on some people who obviously have involvement here in the Coachella Valley. And we've already talked about Sonny Bono.
Yes.
What about Frank Sinatra?
Always nice to me, not always to other people. He's the sexiest man I've ever seen in my life.
Sexier than Jim Morrison?
Well, that's an issue because...
That caused a pause.
No, it caused a pause because they both have blue eyes. But Sinatra has no butt at all. I don't know how his pants stayed on. Actually, they didn't.
They didn't. They were rarely on.
Well, that is true.
They weren't on. I met him when Nancy Sinatra threw her record party for Boots. Mm-hmm. And she introduced me to him, and I almost gasped. It's not that he was so handsome. He had the strongest energy, and those blue eyes, it was like nothing I'd ever seen. He just flattens you. You almost can't even speak. It was different than when I met Cary Grant, who's the most beautiful man in the world. Frank Sinatra had a danger in his eyes.
There was an edge to Frank
Always.
that Cary didn't have.
Nothing. But he's...
Nothing.
There was no edge to Cary Grant, ever. But he was breathtaking. Can I tell you one thing about Carol Burnett and Cary Grant?
Yes, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Carol had always wanted Cary on her show, and he never would go. And he was the one star she really wanted to meet. She finally got Jimmy Stewart on her show, but Cary Grant was the one.
The holdout.
Yeah, and she and I got invitations on the same day to a record-playing party that Peggy Lee was giving for her new album, and we were told that Cary Grant was going to be there. So I called Carol, and I go, "Did you hear this?" And she's screaming on the phone. Yes, I'll be there. So we make a deal. We're going to get there at the same time. I get there early. I'm sitting on the couch, and there's no Cary Grant. I'm like a beacon going like this. Where's Cary Grant? Carol comes in. She sees me. She sits down on the couch next to me. There's still no Cary. So finally he came in, and oh my God, it really was Cary Grant in the suit from North by Northwest and the gray tie and the white. Oh my God. And I was saying to her, oh my God, he's here, he's walking to the bar, now's our time, nobody really knows he's here, we have to get to the bar now. And I got up and I, come on, Carol, let's go. And she said, I can't. I said, what do you mean? This is Cary Grant, this is your biggest chance. I can't. I go, what's the matter with you? And she goes, I wet my pants. And I went, too bad, I'm going to see Cary. So I left Carol in a puddle on the couch. And,
Did she really?
yes.
That was.
That's fantastic.
She did eventually get to the bar. I don't know how. I didn't ask any questions.
Just wrap a sweater around.
Yeah, right.
All right. You just mentioned Nancy Sinatra. Talk a little bit about Nancy Sinatra and your relationship with Nancy.
She is a sweetheart. She is a sweet, loving girl. She's a daddy's girl. It's a shame that he left the original Nancy.
Nancy.
Yeah, it really broke the kids, all of them. It was very, very tough on them. Nancy is just a sweet, wonderful girl who has had many more hits than we realize.
People forget she had a number of top 40 hits.
Yes.
2 number 1 hits.
Yes, I mean she did
Boots
good work.
And Something Stupid with her dad,
Yes.
and he insisted that she record it with him. Mm-hmm. Now she lives out here full time now.
She moved.
Oh, she moved back?
Sorry.
Back to L.A.
Yes,
or?
I think she moved to what we call the Suzanne Plachette building, but I can't tell you where it is.
Another one of my crushes growing up.
Oh, Suzanne Plachette.
Oh, God. Fabulous woman. So fabulous, so smart, so bright. But Nancy I just adore. She's a sweetheart.
I met her once when Frank Jr. was getting a star on the Palm Springs Walk of the Stars. And I was doing an interview with Frank, and he was such a gentleman, a delightful guy. And we went and sat down, and I'm doing the interview. And during this, I kind of feel this energy behind me.
Yeah.
And I turn around, and it's Nancy.
Oh, wow.
And I realized I was sitting in her chair. And
Okay.
she was a little irritated by that. And Frank Jr. was delightful. He looked at me and goes, "It's okay, Nancy. We're just doing a quick interview for the television. He'll be gone in a moment." And I was.
That's funny.
But Frank Jr. was such a gentleman to me. And I met him and his father on the same night in Vegas. He was conducting for his dad at the Desert Inn. And then he was the lounge show afterwards.
Yes.
And so I briefly met Frank, but I got to spend more time with Frank Jr., and we did several interviews over the years.
Frank's father was so big, so larger than life. Frank Jr., who sadly looked like him, meaning it was harder for him to break out as he had a really good voice. He was a good entertainer. He was a talented conductor. Real shame.
Oh, no, and he died much too young.
I know.
He died younger than his father, 72.
It wasn't a ham sandwich.
No, it wasn't. All right.
You've also worked with, I always mention my crushes on these shows because they always seem to pop up. Leslie Ann Warren.
This may be why your wife doesn't listen.
It may be why she doesn't show up for these. Dusty Springfield.
Yes.
The son of a preacher man, I could listen to 50 times a day.
She hated that song.
She hated it. Why?
It was turned down by Aretha, and she didn't care that it was turned down by Aretha because she thought everything should go to Aretha first. She knew.
Yeah.
And they gave it to her. Aretha didn't want it and gave it to her, and she said, I just hate this song, and I know it's a hit. I'm going to be stuck singing it my whole life. And it was. And then Aretha was so angry at Dusty for making a hit out of it.
Because it was a hit, yeah.
Uh-huh. Aretha was not nice. If you had a hit, she tried to redo it and come after you. Think of her Dionne Warwick, I Say a Little Prayer, and then Aretha came along, bam! She tried to do the same thing to Dusty, but since Dusty hated the song, she didn't care, and she liked Aretha's version. Dusty is the greatest singer, in my opinion, who ever lived.
Really?
Yes. She could sing opera, Broadway, jazz, blues, everything. The most extraordinary singer. It's a great loss, but when people have alcohol and pill problems and they don't stop it in time.
You saw a lot of that, didn't you?
You saw that so much of your career.
And it's, why me, God? I mean, I didn't know anything. I took nothing. When the Association had a hit called Along Came Mary, I don't know what that is, so I'm sent to interview them, and I go, "Who's Mary?" And the guys are laughing at me. And I go, "What's so funny?" I'm still in the plaid skirt. "What's so funny?" And they wouldn't tell me. And then at the end of the interview, one of them, Terry Kirkman, who I understand is ill, took me aside and said, "Well, this is really what it is, and I need to watch out for you because you need to be careful because you really don't understand what's going on here."
Yeah, because there's a whole subculture of music.
I knew nothing. When Jackie DeShannon was recording with Charlie Green and Brian Stone, Sonny and Cher's managers, let's just say that they were hired by friends of Mickey's. And that
Mickey Cohen.
Yes, and that Cher's father was also a friend of a Mickey. That's why he was always removed. And that was where the money came from to start Sonny and Cher. Allegedly. Anyway.
All right, another question, because you brought something out. So the Dusty Springfield story reminded me of this story. And I know that you know Sammy Davis Jr.
Yes.
He hated the song The Candyman. Mm-hmm. And he said, this song is going to go in the toilet, and it might take my career with it, yet it was his biggest hit.
Right.
So
right. You have to be grateful. Tell me what a star thinks about that when something is a hit.
Yeah, because he did not want to, I mean, by all accounts, he did not want to record that song.
For Sammy, who I knew quite well, you take the check. He cashes it and buys another car.
Yeah, okay.
Dusty never got any joy from Son of a Preacher Man, really.
Really?
There were other songs that she truly, truly loved.
What were the songs? I mean, she has a great catalog, but
she loves All I See Is You. That's one of her favorite songs. The favorite album is Dusty in Memphis. The favorite song on Dusty in Memphis is Just One Smile. And Dusty, because she did have those problems, those substance abuse problems, Don't Go Breaking My Heart was written by Elton for her. And he couldn't get her in the studio, so he gave it to one of her backup singers.
Kiki D.
I'd try not to even mention the name because I'm so furious. And then the Bond people gave Dusty Nobody Does It Better. And they waited a year to get her in the studio. And they just kept waiting and waiting. And
so then Carly Simon got it.
Right, because Dusty blew it.
Wow.
So it was
and that was a Bond that
huge.
Every Bond song becomes a number one hit.
But when you are under alcohol and pills, you make very self-destructive decisions, which is why she died. Even though she got sober in the 80s, she never had a mammogram. And that's the self-destructive thinking of an addict. And by the time she found a lump, it was too late.
Well, there are a lot of stuff like Tammy Wynette. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time.
It happens all the all right, let's circle back to Mickey Cohen. You called him Uncle Mickey?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know who he was. I'm 8.
Oh, Mickey, he's so fine.
That's really great.
Mickey Cohen was notorious.
To an 8-year-old?
Well,
Uncle Mickey
was a great guy.
Everybody's an uncle.
All right, talk about your relationship with Mickey Cohen. Because,
Uncle Mickey.
I'm sorry, Uncle Mickey. So your dad was his lawyer?
Yes. Jerry Giesler was the big Hollywood star lawyer. That was Marilyn Monroe's lawyer and everybody's. And my father, when he graduated from USC Law School, ends up as the young man on the totem pole at Jerry Giesler's office, which was at Hollywood and Vine in the Taft building, which is why I ate most of my meals at Musso and Frank when I was with my father. But to get back to Uncle Mickey, there was a club on the Sunset Strip called Dave's Blue Room. Many years later, it was called Gazzari's. Now I don't know what it's called. But it was the hot spot. That's where, I'm sorry to say, my parents met. My mother had her own show on NBC Radio as a singer, very beautiful. Was on the road with Eddie Foy and Ben Blue and all of these comics, and she saw this kind of handsome, dashing Hollywood type at this bar on the Sunset Strip. I don't know what happened after the bar, but I know I appeared.
I think we can surmise what happened.
They were married.
Episode 2 of the Sue Cameron story.
They were married. But she soon realized that he was not going to be financially responsible, that he was too slick and too interested in Hollywood. That's why she looked around to see an available, responsible man who was the OBGYN man who delivered me. I love the look on your face. Anyway, back to my father.
The insularness of this story is just fantastic. Okay, back to your...
So my father took me to Dave's Blue Room because I kept saying to him, "Where did you meet my mother?" And he would say, "Dave's Blue Room." And he said, "I will take you there." I'm 8. And he takes me there. I'm 8. I remember tall bar stools and tall people and noise and smoke. And then this man came over. "Hi, Polly." That was Mickey. And he said, "This is Mr. Cohen." And Mickey said, "Oh, call me Uncle Mickey." I went, "Okay, hi, Uncle Mickey." There was another point when Mickey was shot after he walked out of Dave's Blue Room. That was when my father was with him. I was not. My father was not in the shot. More of Mickey. You want more of Mickey?
I want more. Well, because Mickey ran Hollywood. He ran L.A.
8. I only know.
He was Uncle Mickey.
He was Uncle Mickey. And one night, my father said, "We're having dinner with Uncle Mickey." I was probably now 10. And I went, "Oh, goody, goody." And we go to what I did not know at the time was a strip club. I don't know this. I'm 10. So
Was there a kids menu?
I love that so much. Don't ask me for my comeback. 8, 9, 10. So I'm introduced to these two huge women. I'm already short, and so is Mickey, but these two women are not short. And Mickey goes, Susie, I'd like you to meet Tonda Leo and Miss Beverly Hills. Hello. They were the strippers. I don't know this. Miss Beverly Hills was Mickey's girl. And so I sat in the booth. My father just put me in a booth. It was very interesting because it helped in Hollywood. I mean, that I was thrown into all of these things.
I'm sure dropping Uncle Mickey's name didn't hurt.
Mickey was funny and sweet, and you could tell when he was in a bad mood. And when he was in a bad mood, my father would leave and take me with him.
Yeah. Wow.
Nothing bad ever happened to me, but when my mother found out about Uncle Mickey, that didn't go over well.
Really?
No.
She didn't really want you hanging out with mobsters? I'm surprised. Let's go back to the Bob Hope.
Okay, Bob Hope is not one of my favorite people.
I know that. That's why I asked the question. Actually, it wasn't just a question. I just said his name. You go from there.
I don't have to answer then.
Yo, you do. Oh, no.
I am a middle-of-the-road person when it comes to politics, and I don't like people all the way on the right or people all the way on the left telling me what to do. I want to make up my own mind. And Bob Hope, anything that he did, it was always planned to put a certain point of view in front of people. And he used his persona of being Mr. Good Guy, going all around the world, entering the troops, when he was allegedly having affairs with most of the women who were on those trips with him.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I don't care for that duplicity. Do I think that he was a good American and did a lot for the world? And he was tremendous, what he did. He really influenced so much good in this country and bringing hope to all of those troops. And other people did it, but Bob Hope was the king. The problem is that I was TV editor of the Hollywood Reporter at the time when he had his specials on, and his specials were always terrible because it was terrible written material, and he would just stand there and read a cue card, and half the time, if he was interviewing someone, they weren't even there, and he would try to react to them, and they'd bring in some... It was so sloppy, and looking down on the American public, thinking that you'll love this show. He
thought he could throw anything at them and they'd like it.
Yeah, so he was cheating on his wife all the time, and I did go to his house here. Arthur Elrod Arthur Elrod and Bob Hope gave a party, so I was invited to both the Elrod house and Hope's house, which was really, really something. So I didn't want to get away from Bob because there was news and all of that. But
sure,
he knew how I felt about him because I was not kind to his specials, but I would always go because my friends were starring in them. He was a terrible father. All the children were adopted. They were props. His wife just went to, like Rose Kennedy, just went to Catholic church and prayed while he cheated. Allegedly. I'm trying to bring both sides because he really did a lot of good for the world. Right. And I don't see anybody else doing that.
But there was a personal life behind the scenes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, so I saw Bob Hope perform live twice in the same day.
Oh.
And it was at the University of Virginia.
Uh-huh.
He appeared at the halftime show of a football game, and it was, I think, the university's anniversary, a big anniversary. But then he did a comedy show that night. The Bob Hope that popped out of the cake at halftime and the Bob Hope that did the comedy show, I was shocked because his comedy show was pretty blue.
Ah, interesting.
It was not the NBC special Bob Hope.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it was
carrying a golf club in his hand. And
he did have the golf club in his hand, but there were some F-bombs, and I was not expecting that from Bob Hope.
Oh, I'm very surprised.
It was, yeah.
That's interesting.
That was in it was near the end of his career, but it was shocking to me because I'd grown up with the Bob Hope,
Right.
Here we are in today.
Yeah. No, exactly.
So, Sue, what are you working on now?
I'm tired.
You've got
working on it.
You've got what, 5 books published?
I've written 7. 4 that were published. One was about the one that was not published was stopped by the mob in Europe. It went to the Frankfurt Book Fair. There was a story when in the 70s, a lot of the men who were the capos were killed and the wives took over. So it was about those wives. But the Frankfurt, the guys were at the Frankfurt Book Fair, so they killed that one.
That sounds like a pretty fascinating story.
The other one was one that I loved that was about women in politics, and I had it sent to a publisher, not realizing it was Hillary Clinton's publisher, and Hillary was in the book, and I was very complimentary to her. And the people who read it and said, this is a great book, but because we handle Mrs. Clinton, and we know you're nice to her, we can't touch this. Then there was another one, another mafia situation. And I realized that when I just go write what I want to do, I can get in trouble or killed.
Well, thankfully you haven't got killed.
So
thankfully.
That would have made for a really lousy podcast.
I am writing a new book now, and it's like a follow-up to Hollywood Secrets and Scandals, where each person is a chapter. But it's if I can imagine this, it's even more personal than the other one, because I didn't put a lot of me in that book. I talked about what was happening in the room and how I felt, but I want to add a little bit more of me and what that felt like growing up. All the names will be in there, but it's different. The study of celebrity is fascinating.
Well, you are, I think, arguably the world's most expert study
I
of
actually
celebrity.
Agree with you, but I'm not supposed to say that.
Well, no, it's okay. I want you to tell the Veronica Lake story, because she received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And I believe you and the host, the MC of the event, were virtually the only people who attended, which is unbelievable to me, because she was such...
She was a star.
When stars were stars. Yeah. When you talk about... And you mentioned, Jimmy Stewart. These people were stars.
Oh,
she was a star.
Oh, yes.
But she... And you told us this, I think, a little bit before. She worked hard at exiting Hollywood because she didn't like what was being done to her in her career.
Right. I remember my mother showing me movies of this woman with the long blonde hair, because my mother was very good. She educated me on all the old movies. She taught me who everybody was and ran their movies, so all of my history was in my head before even starting. I think parents should continue to do that today, and I don't think they are, but I wish they would. So when I was called by her publicist saying she's coming out with a book, she's only going to be in Hollywood for one day, would you please interview her? I was always the one that the publicist would call when it was an older star who was a little like this. I was called when Rita Hayworth started to take off her clothes at the Golden Globes, and it caused a lot of trouble, and they called me, would you please have tea with Rita today? Because they knew I would write a nice piece to combat the clothes. So I work with them. I'm happy. It's not that I'm lying. I'm telling the truth of a story. But they know that I'm kind, and I understand what's needed. And
you weren't going to write a hatchet piece on somebody.
No, I mean, there were the Rona Barretts of the world.
Yes.
Who looked for the dirt.
Yes. I'm smiling because I see Rona all the time. She lives in the San Ynez Valley. She's one of my favorite people because we both see through everything.
But Rona, she took a different tack.
Yes, she did. Yeah, she did the Wicked Whisper.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that stuff. No, I never wanted to be that. No. And I think
interesting that you two get along and are friends because...
We were thrown into it.
Yeah.
And I met her in the late 60s. We were just thrown into it. She was doing columns at the time. She didn't have her own magazines or anything. And we had a mutual friend who was a publicist, and she just kept inviting us to the same events. And so that's what happened. Now, Rona has been extremely good to me, and I've been very good to her. Rona and I will be appearing at the Purple Room, talking to each other.
Oh, that's going to be...
I've had 3 different dates set, and something has come up for her. I hope that she's not chickening out. But I really want to do that.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be there for that.
Yeah, that's going to be...
We will definitely be there. All right, so back to Veronica Lake. She's coming
yes.
into town one day.
Yeah, and I go, oh, yes, it's the lady with the blonde hair who's very beautiful. And I had seen enough actors and actresses by that time. They have a look of failure. Whether it's Betty Hutton, there's this failure that comes over them. And when she walked into Musso and Frank, she was wearing gray sweatpants, a gray sweatshirt with a hood, some little tank top, and either bedroom slippers or tennis shoes. No makeup. If I hadn't seen those movies, I wouldn't know who this woman was. When someone drinks too much alcohol and smokes too much, it's the face. And I just saw all of it. And fortunately, knock on wood, I have a gift for good or bad. If I see someone like that, I already know everything that's happened to them, and I know what's going to happen to them, and the whole thing is a sad mess. So I tried to ask her really nice questions, and she was saying, no, I did it myself. I drank on the sets. I was mean to directors. I was difficult to work with. She said, I didn't want them playing with my hair. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to do that. And I just wanted out. Yet here she is, after being away from the screen for 40 years or something. She has a book to promote that she was probably somebody, I'm sure somebody else wrote it.
Right.
And Veronica probably got $1.98, and whoever wrote it got $10. And it's not going to sell one copy. And my heart just broke when I see, because she had it.
Oh,
she was the it woman at that time. Yeah.
I hate to see the it people go. And most of the it people don't come from a stable home. I've discovered that almost everyone that we lose, or where there's a career that goes like this, like Lindsay Lohan or something, congratulations on her baby. You cannot, like Jim Morrison, any of them, you can't sustain in Hollywood if you didn't come from a strong family background where the family had dinner together. If you had your parents' support, you can't drink and do drugs and survive. You can't. You also need to realize that unless you're smart, like a Nicole Kidman, who will have a career like Helen Hayes, who knows exactly what to do, the Sofia Vergara's, who I think is a very nice person, and I enjoy watching her on America's Got Talent. She's not thinking, what am I going to be doing when I'm in my 70s? I am a product. What am I selling? And they don't think that, because they just, it's like bright lights exploding. It's too many bright lights, and you need to move away from Hollywood. And you you don't work too much, but let your work stand on its own and never stop working.
But Veronica did move away, but then when she received her star on the...
Oh, yeah, I forget. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I'm glad Veronica moved away. She shouldn't have come back. In many cases, you need to know whether you stay or come back. This was the saddest thing I've ever seen. When it was Gary Owens from Laugh-In.
That's right.
And he was standing alone on the sidewalk by her star. When you have a star on the Walk of Fame, they bring busloads by. They tell fans, there are press releases. There are people all around. And Gary's just standing there. And I'm walking over with her publicist. I can't remember who it was. And any fool can see there's no one at my star. How embarrassing.
Oh.
How horrible. What a horrible thing to have happen. And so I just stayed with her and tried to keep it upbeat. And I said, would you sign your book to me? And she wrote, here's hoping our first meeting won't be our last. Love, Veronica. Wow. And, of course, we know it was.
It was.
Those stories
There's a picture of Gary Owens, you, and her. Mm-hmm. And you told me the story before I ever saw the picture. And the picture is so poignant. And it brought the story to life to me. It was just remarkable. I don't want to end on a sad note. Talk about your friend Lucy Arnaz.
Happy birthday to Lucy.
Just her birthday.
Happy birthday, Lucy.
Lucy's opening in 54 Below in New York on July 19th. She's doing her show, I Got the Job, which is absolutely fabulous. And then Lucy is not working anymore at the moment until fall. Excuse me. Palm Springs air conditioning. She and her husband are going on the trip of a lifetime. They're going to Europe. They're going to Rome, Turkey, Greece, all of these wonderful things. They have the best place on the ship in terms of where they're staying. They really just decided, well, we haven't done this in years. If we're going to do it, let's just do it. And we have a friend in Rome named Bradley who works with Mother Teresa's nuns, and he's their choir director. So Bradley, who is also known to mix drinks for Pope Francis, is going to...
Rum and Coke.
No, he likes gin.
I knew I liked this Pope.
So Bradley's going to take them through the Vatican and all that stuff. They're going to have a ball.
Well, you guys have been friends for virtually all of her life.
Well, Lucy was 15. She was on Here's Lucy. And I went to interview her. And we hit it off immediately. And then I got a call from the press agent for Lucille Ball. His name was Charlie Pomerantz, nicest man. And he said, Lucille Ball would like to have you over for tea next Wednesday. And I said, what did I do? She was terrifying. There were some people in Hollywood who were terrifying, and she's one of them. Not that she mistreated, she didn't do anything. But the stature and the hair and the voice, it was terrifying. So I went over there, and she was in her backgammon room, chain smoking. There may have been a glass of tea. And then she said to me, you're the one who interviewed Lucy, right? I went, yes. I thought, that's it. I'm going to be found dead. And
I like that you think Lucille Ball is going to kill you, not Mickey Cohen.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Mickey Cohen.
I had no problem with Mickey. Women terrify me. I had no problem with Mickey. He was easy. He was easy to handle. Lucy was not easy to handle. Just ask my Lucy. Anyway, she was very kind, and she said to me, thank you for being so nice to my daughter. It made me feel so good. She's working hard in this role. She was lovely to me. And our Lucy didn't know that story until about 10 years ago.
Really?
And she said, my mother thanked you for that article. I went, yeah.
Wow.
So it was nice.
Well, I love...
This has been amazing.
Lucy and Larry, they're terrific.
Yes, they are.
I have a soft spot in my heart for both of them, and I know that you guys are dear friends. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast and telling these stories. I have a million more questions about a million more people because I know you were close to all of them, but we'll save that for the next visit.
You got it.
Sue, this has been
Always
incredible.
Happy.
My wife she's going to be floating when I get back and tell her about all of this tonight.
The hilarious thing is I never once mentioned Leslie Van Houten.
Oh, that's right, and that's what we wanted to talk about. Very quickly, Leslie Van Houten just paroled.
One of the Manson family.
I met Leslie when the warden of the prison called me to come speak there at a career day. That sounded terrifying to me, but I went. And the audience liked me, and I was upbeat to them and encouraging. And then as I was walking out, he said, could you stay a little longer? There's some other prisoners I'd like you to meet. He said, they're not in the general population. And I went, okay. And we're walking, and he says, you need to know they're the Manson girls. And I said, they killed my friend Sharon Tate. I'm not going. And he said, that's okay. You don't have to. And then the reporter in me went, are you you nuts? So they took away all my jewelry, everything. I walked into the Mansons' living room. They had a living room there with a television set and a couch, and I was face to face with Leslie Van Houten, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Susan Atkins.
Wow.
Susan Atkins is the one who killed Sharon Tate.
Yes.
What was the energy like in that room?
It was all different. Leslie Van Houten was wearing a tennis sweater and jeans and penny loafers, and she looked like young Mary Tyler Moore. She looked like she was waiting for lunch at the Palm.
Wow.
I don't know what she was doing there. Susan Atkins looked at me, and I thought she was going to kill me on the spot. I'll never get that face out. Patricia Krenwinkel didn't know who I was, and she was kind of quizzical and whatever. Those two girls walked away, and I only sat with Leslie. And I said, "What are you doing here? I don't understand this."
And you worked on her behalf.
Yes, it was very important to me. I wanted her paroled, and I was very angry at the Tate family, and I don't want to cast aspersions because I've had people, friends of mine that I love, murdered. They kept trying to loop Leslie in with the Manson girls and the Tate murders. Leslie wasn't there. She was the prom princess whose parents got a divorce. She felt unsafe. She was taking drugs. She ran away to San Francisco. She was looking for a father figure. When she met Charles Manson, he was singing The Shadow of Your Smile to her, and she just felt safe. When they moved to the Spahn Ranch, Manson was giving every single one of those people, boys or girls, LSD every single day. So their brains were wrecked. She knew she wanted out. The day after the Tate murder, she heard something horrible had happened. And then Tex Watson came over to her and said, you're coming with us tonight. And she didn't want to go. She was very scared. And but again, remember, the LSD fries the brain.
Right.
So there's a part of her that gets what's going on and another part that's not working at all. They went to the La Bianca house. Leslie has said two different stories. What she told me was that she was at the refrigerator trying not to go anywhere in the house, just looking at the refrigerator. And Tex Watson came over to her and said, "You better go kill somebody because Charlie told me to kill you if you don't kill anybody." And she told me that she walked down the hall and she saw Mrs. LaBianca. She thought Mrs. LaBianca was dead. I'm not giving excuses for this. I'm just telling you this is what Leslie said. She thought she was dead, and Tex Watson said, "Do something." So Leslie stabbed her many times.
I think she's testified 16 times.
Yeah. She also has told me that she thinks Mrs. LaBianca was dead. I don't know. I only know that she was unlike the other two. Susan Atkins, fortunately, died of cancer. Patricia, who I have also seen through the years, has become much more friendly and accepting. I still don't accept anything from Patricia. Sorry.
Right.
But Leslie, this was really a horrible thing that this girl got into. She was there in prison for 53 years. She has a number of degrees. She's a really sweet girl, and she's not going to hurt anybody. These people who say she's going to go out, no, they don't know who this is. A nice girl.
Yeah.
Now, she was really a victim.
Totally.
Part of that as well.
Yes, completely.
Sue, a great pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, I loved it.
I always like finishing up on the laughs like that.
Yeah, after a Manson murder story.
I don't know how that goes with the Manson.
This was fantastic, Sue. This is exactly what I was hoping this hour was going to be.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much.
That was just the...
That's literally the tip of the iceberg.
With 9 more episodes to go.
It's always a pleasure to spend time with you.
So much fun. And I think when we do, I'm going to say thank you for having me on your podcast. Thank you both. I've had a fabulous time.
Thank you for being
Sue
here.
Cameron.
Thank you on sound.
Thank you to John McMullen, our producer and engineer, and of course Randy. Simply could not do this
Let's
without
not forget Randy. Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to
you. And
throw
you're
that
still
out
here,
there.
which
I'm
is
still
remarkable. That's great. We couldn't do this without Randy unless we find somebody else. No.
Anybody in the bar.
Anybody else. There are a number of promising prospects. Thank you very much for...
I don't think so.
No, Randy. Randy, he's the brains behind this operation.
Well, it's very good.
How sad is that?
Scare every one of us. And, of course, find us on your favorite podcast platform. For Randy and John and our guest Sue, I'm Patrick Evans. Join us next time on Big Conversations Little Bar.
Thanks for listening to Big Conversations Little Bar. Join Randy and Patrick next time as we keep the conversation going right here on Big Conversations Little Bar.